Hey, welcome investors to the 40 Finance channel. My name's Jeff Beers. Today we'll be looking at Facebook stock, and I'm going to give my price prediction for Facebook stock in the year 2022. Their fiscal calendar runs from January to December, so we're coming to the end of 2020. Then we've got 2021 on top of that. Where will Facebook stock sit in January of 2022? Reminder as always that my stock picks and projections are just my opinion for your entertainment. Please talk to a financial professional before taking on the risks of investing. However, if you do enjoy stock market analysis and personal finance videos, please subscribe to the 40 Finance channel. Thank you to everyone who's supported the channel so far. And as a free bonus, if you're interested, I just released my 15-minute stock analysis report. Link for that is in the description. This is a great little report that'll give you some hacks for researching stocks quickly, save you some time, and help you build a more efficient watch list. All right, first things first, let's take a look at where Facebook stands today. We have a price of $293.66, current PE ratio of 35.91, EPS in the trailing 12 months has been $8.18. And you can see the 52-week range. We've got a low of 137 and a high of 304. Quick look at the chart off to the right. No real surprise. Facebook has been going up slowly but surely. We obviously had the March dip with COVID here. And it's been a little bit more of a bumpy road in 2020 as you kind of see the fluctuations. And a lot of that has to do with the ad revenue with consumers and advertisers, feeling the uncertainty of the pandemic. There has been some dips along the way with Facebook, but currently sort of on an upward trajectory and sits at $293.66. All right, so I've done a couple videos, Microsoft and Apple, where I used this price prediction formula. Both were very popular, so thanks to everybody for your support there. But if you haven't watched those, let's just go over the quick points of how we do this. And you see that top bullet point formula is very simple. Our price equals the projected PE times the projected EPS. So we're going to go through some numbers and get to a PE projection and an EPS projection. That will give us the price. As I called out in the beginning, Facebook fiscal year runs January through December. So we haven't completed 2020 yet, and we still have 2021 to go. So this price that I'm going to be talking about today is essentially for January of 2022 and incorporates the full year earnings of 2021, essentially 16 months away. And of course at the bottom, this is pure subjective data based entirely on my opinion across the board for the price to earnings, EPS, where the economy will go, all those things. I spend a lot of time researching stocks. This is, I put my best analysis foot forward, but it's very important to understand that this is subjective data and not much more than a 50-50 chance that it comes to fruition. All right, so the first step in the process is to project EPS, and we do that by taking into account what analysts think of the EPS today and forward, and we kind of look back a little bit to see how has Facebook performed against analysts' expectations in the past. All right, so at the top of the screen we have our earnings history over the past 4 quarters, and in the green box I have highlighted the surprise percentage. This is simply the percentage amount that Facebook has posted compared to what the analysts actually expected. So you start back in September of 2019, you had 11% surprise, then 1.2, then minus 2.3, and then here in their most recent quarter, a huge 30% surprise, mostly because analysts were sort of down on ad revenue prospects, and it turns out that, Facebook did okay in that department. So eventually I have to make a call on this surprise percentage. I'm going to go with the 15% surprise. Of the 3 videos I've done like this has been the hardest one to come to a conclusion, but I'm going with 15%. I'm going to say somewhere in the middle of the September 29th earnings and the June 29th earnings is what I'm expecting out of Facebook going forward. Now we'll switch down to the bottom rows for EPS. We see that the current estimate, which is the yellow box all the way across, the current estimate for the next year, next full year, is 1015. That's sort of in the blue yellow box there. At the bottom, I have the orange box, and this is what analysts were calling for only 90 days ago. And you can see with Facebook, if you go all the way to the right of the orange row, 981, 90 days ago is what analysts projected. Now we're up top in the blue, and they're already up to $10.15. We've got to last 16 months with this projection, which is not easy. So off to the far right in the blue text, I'm going to use $13, which takes $10.15. It factors in my surprise percentage of 15%. There's a momentum play here with Facebook where I think there's a lot of concern with ad spend pouring into the Facebook platform. My gut says those fears are overblown, so I'm going to give a momentum boost. Bottom line, we land at $13. All right, so we have our EPS prediction of $13. Again, subjective, based on my opinion. Now we need to get the other component of our price formula, and that is the PE ratio. And again, this has to be a PE ratio projection for January of 2022. What are people paying for Facebook stock January of 2022? So the best we can do is look back at history, see what people have paid in the past. That will help us choose a number for the future. Okay, so skipping right ahead, you see I've highlighted the trailing PE number over the past several years. These are annual numbers, except for the first one, which is obviously the current. And you have 35, 32, 19, 34, 44, and 105. I've added those up for you. The average is 33.42. And once again with Facebook, this is a little bit of a harder game than it was with Microsoft and Apple, which have been fairly predictable businesses. I'm going to use a number of 32. In the back half of 2020, I think PEs are awfully inflated right now. I don't know if anyone would argue with that. And while I don't expect a major correction in PEs, I do expect to see some dips and small corrections occurring. It is, of course, very hard right now because with interest rates at 0, you're going to have inflated PEs. Bottom line, though, through all that, I'm using a PE prediction of 32 for our exercise here today. All right, so we've got our EPS prediction of 13. Got our PE prediction of 32. This is for the earnings call on January of 2022. Let's see how things stack up. Okay, so right at the top of the board, $13 EPS times 32 PE equals a share price of $416. That is plus 42% from where we stand today. Now, this is a longer timeline than I had to predict for Apple and Microsoft. Those companies have a different fiscal year than the Gregorian calendar. With Facebook and where we are today, basically in the beginning of September, I have to outlook 16 months. So 42% is sort of high, but then you start thinking about what we're talking about here, January 2022, that may not be too bad. It could very well suggest to some degree that Facebook has the most upside potential between Microsoft and Apple, depending on how much you believe in my data. Now, in the middle of the screen, we're going to flip the formula a little bit and see what the outputs are. If we went with the lower EPS but a higher PE, so if EPS came in at $10 instead of 13, and we use today's PE of 35, interesting that Facebook only goes up 19% and lands about $350. On the flip side, if we went with a higher EPS and a lower PE, we would end up at $450, which is plus 53%. Really the big factor though is PE, understanding how much you're paying for those earnings per share. will really help you look at stocks more deeply and come to a firmer conclusion on whether or not you should buy. Facebook EPS is a little squishy, if you will, right now, because 2020, certainly Q2 and Q1, did not go as expected due to the pandemic and ad dollars being cut. So you almost have to go back to 2019 in an odd way, look at how those quarters sort of fluctuated, and then you have to pick your side on 2021. Are we bouncing back as an economy? Is the pandemic concerns going away? Those are all questions you have to answer internally. For my side on 2021, at least for planning purposes, I'm assuming a regular year. I'm assuming that health concerns dwindle, and while there will still be pain in certain areas, I don't see Facebook having to deal with a lot of the same pain, say, as like commercial real estate. All right, so the bottom line here is, regardless of my stock prediction, I do think that Facebook is a good long-term stock. You're talking about a company that has plenty of cash on hand. They have the ability to acquire new companies if needed. You're pretty much free and clear on the China risk side. And for all the criticisms that Zuckerberg gets, let's just face it that over the past 2 or 3 years, while he's been under the microscope, he has produced solid profits. The second point to remind you that I've already called out is this has been interesting with Facebook compared to Apple and Microsoft in the same exercise because of what they're showing in the price potential. That plus 40-some% price potential is something we did not see in the other 2 videos I did. So from my desk, it definitely warrants additional research and consideration, and potentially add Facebook as a strong buy from my camp. And if you're new to stock market analysis, I do want to remind you just how many moving parts are involved in this price projection, right? You have contracts, you have capex, you have economic influences, you have advertiser influences. So please don't just take this word and run to the streets. I would say it's an informed prediction, but a lot can change over 16 months. And most stock market analysts, the guys that you read in Barron's and Bloomberg and all those things, they get to reanalyze every quarter and adjust their predictions. That's why they tend to hit on things so often. All right, guys, so last point, just to keep in mind when you are out there making trades, if you're in it for the long term, PE is big. It adds that multiplier to every dollar that you spend. So please keep that in mind when you're trying to buy dips, buy high, buy low. Please look at the PE. It makes a big difference in the long run. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this price prediction on Facebook stock. If you have any stocks you'd like to see, please leave them in the comments. I make a little watch list of my own for upcoming videos. And as always, please give me a like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.